What happened at Incheon Airport that left thousands of fans in tears, stunned, and emotionally shaken? Why did Jungkook, known for his composed demeanor, suddenly break down in front of cameras and whisper words that armies are still trying to decode? And what did Jimin do in response that turned a simple farewell into one of the most emotionally charged moments in BTS history? These questions have dominated social media, fan forums, and news outlets since the moment the footage surfaced. But beneath the surface of viral clips and trending topics lies a deeper story, one of friendship, vulnerability, and a confession that may redefine how the world sees the bond between Jungkook and Jimin. The moment Jungkook stepped into the arrival hall at Incheon Airport, the atmosphere shifted. Surrounded by flashing cameras and a sea of fans, he moved with a quiet intensity that betrayed something deeper than fatigue or jet lag. Then, without warning, he spotted Jimin, waiting, arms open, eyes glistening. What followed was not just a hug. It was a collapse into each other's arms, a silent exchange of emotion that transcended language. Jungkook held on longer than expected, his grip tightening, his head buried in Jimin's shoulder. Observers noted the tremble in his hands, the way his lips moved as if whispering something only Jimin could hear. And then, the tears came. What did Jungkook say in that moment? According to eyewitnesses and lip-reading experts who analyzed the footage, his words were simple yet devastating. "I missed you more than I could say." But it wasn't just the sentence, it was the way he said it. His voice cracked, his breath caught, and his eyes refused to meet the crowd. It was as if he had been holding back a flood of emotion for months, maybe years. And Jimin, ever the empath, responded not with words but with a hand to Jungkook's back, a nod, and a whisper of his own. "I'm here now." This exchange, brief and quiet, ignited a storm. Armies around the world began dissecting every frame, every syllable, every gesture. Why now? Why this moment? Why did Jungkook choose a public space, surrounded by strangers and flashing lights, to finally let go? Theories abound. Some point to the recent solo activities that have kept the members apart. Others suggest that Jungkook's emotional state was triggered by something more personal, perhaps a memory, a regret, or a realization that time is moving faster than anyone expected. But what truly shook the fandom was what happened minutes later. In a rare move, Jungkook addressed the crowd directly. Standing beside Jimin, still visibly emotional, he took a deep breath and said, "There are things I've never said, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how. Jimin has been my anchor, my mirror, my brother. I owe him more than I've ever admitted." The silence that followed was deafening. Fans gasped. Some cried. Others simply stood frozen, trying to process the weight of his words. Why did Jungkook choose this moment to speak? Was it planned? Was it spontaneous? Sources close to the group suggest that the reunion at the airport was not orchestrated. Jimin had arrived earlier, and upon learning that Jungkook would be landing soon, he chose to wait. The hug, the tears, the confession. It was all real, raw, and unfiltered. And that's what made it unforgettable. Jimin's reaction, though quieter, was equally powerful. He didn't speak to the press. He didn't post on social media. But later that evening, he uploaded a photo, a blurry shot of two hands clasped tightly with the caption, "Some bonds don't need words." The image went viral within minutes, with fans interpreting it as a silent acknowledgement of Jungkook's confession. It wasn't just about friendship. It was about history, pain, growth, and a love that defies definition. What does this mean for BTS moving forward? Is this a turning point in their emotional journey? Many believe so. The group has always emphasized unity, but rarely have they exposed the depth of their individual relationships in such a public and vulnerable way. Jungkook's words suggest a shift, not just in how he sees Jimin, but in how he sees himself. To admit dependence, gratitude, and emotional reliance is not easy, especially for someone who has spent years cultivating an image of strength and resilience. And what about ARMY? How did they respond? The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support flooded social media. Fan art, tribute videos, and essays poured in, each one attempting to capture the gravity of the moment. Some fans shared their own stories of friendship and emotional healing, inspired by Jungkook's honesty. Others simply thanked him for being real, for being brave, for reminding the world that even idols are human. But perhaps the most poignant response came from a fan who wrote, "Jungkook didn't just hug Jimin. He hugged every one of us who's ever been afraid to speak, to feel, to cry. He gave us permission to be vulnerable." That sentiment echoed across continents, languages, and cultures. It wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. So what now? Will Jungkook and Jimin continue to share their emotional journey with the public? Or was this a one-time glimpse into a private world? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, the bond between them has never been clearer. And for ARMY, that clarity is both comforting and heartbreaking. In the days following the airport reunion, neither Jungkook nor Jimin made further public statements. But their silence spoke volumes. It allowed the moment to breathe, to settle, to resonate. Fans continued to speculate, analyze, and reflect. Some wondered if this was the beginning of a new era, one where emotional transparency becomes the norm, not the exception. And yet, beneath all the analysis and speculation lies a simple truth. Jungkook's confession was not about spectacle. It was about connection. It was about acknowledging the person who has stood beside him through triumphs and trials, through silence and sound. It was about saying, "I see you. I need you. I thank you." That truth, once spoken, cannot be undone. It lingers in the air, in the hearts of fans, in the spaces between songs and stages. It reminds us that behind every performance, every smile, every choreographed move, there are stories, real, raw, and deeply human. As the world continues to turn and BTS continues to evolve, one moment at Incheon Airport stands still. A hug, a whisper, a confession, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful words are the ones we've waited a lifetime to say. In the aftermath of Jungkook's emotional revelation, the silence from both artists became a canvas upon which millions projected their own interpretations. The absence of further statements was not a void, it was a deliberate pause, allowing the gravity of the moment to settle. Fans began revisiting past interviews, performances, and behind-the-scenes footage, searching for clues that might have foreshadowed this confession. Subtle glances, shared laughter, and quiet support between Jungkook and Jimin suddenly took on new meaning. It was as if the emotional architecture of their relationship had always been present,